Network.
How are you?
Amongst other numerous positions she holds within the MBA. Esther holds an LLB degree from the Lagos State University, obtained in 1999, and she was called to the Nigerian Bar in January 2001. She also holds an LLM in International Business Law from the Metropolitan School of Business and Management, United Kingdom, that was obtained in 2013. Esther began her career at a company known as Texaco Nigeria as a corporate affairs officer and then progressed through various roles. Esther has also served as a compliance coordinator for West Africa in Chevron Downstream Marketing, as attorney and acting chief counsel of MRS Nigeria Oil before she left for private practice. Esther has worked in various law firms and currently has her own legal practice, which she started in the year 2023. In addition to her extensive experience, Esther is an associate of the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria. She is an associate of the CIAB UK and an associate of Business Recovery and Insolvency Practitioners Association of Nigeria, and soon to be inducted in Notary Public of Nigeria. As an active litigator, Esther specializes in commercial, criminal, and family law disputes. She's passionate about promoting respect for human rights, gender equality, and children's rights. She also dedicates her time to the provision of pro bono legal services to the indigents and mentorship of young lawyers, among others, reaffirming her commitment to fostering a more equitable legal profession. Esther Jimoh is a remarkable advocate for justice and an inspiring leader in the legal community. So please join me, make welcome our moderator, our council member for this webinar, Esther Ifeoma Jimoh. Over to you, please, Madam Esther. Hello, Esther.
Thank
you're
you
muted.
Yes,
right.
Thank you very much, my able Gentech. Good evening once again, distinguished learned silk, erudite professors, esteemed seniors and colleagues, my chairperson, my alternate chairperson, other members of the EXCO and council members, and of course, invited guests. It's my pleasure to welcome you all once again to today's very important webinar on the role of female lawyers in combating gender-based and digital violence. It's indeed a privilege to share this space with you as we delve into an issue that is not just pressing, but which profoundly impacts the fabric of our society. Gender-based violence and the rising phenomenon of digital violence are not merely issues of individual concern. They are societal scourges that undermine human dignity, disrupt lives, and stifle potentials. According to the World Health Organization, 1 in 3 women globally experience physical or sexual violence. In the digital realm, the threats compound, with women facing harassment, online abuse, and exploitation, which further complicates their pursuit of justice. In this context, the role of female lawyers has never been more critical. Female legal professionals not only advocate for survivors and victims, but also challenge legal frameworks that perpetuate violence and inequality. They bring unique perspectives and experiences that enrich the discourse around gender justice, influencing policy changes and legal reforms. As we navigate through today's discussions, I would encourage us to honor the resilience and dedication of women in the field who are on the front line fighting for justice, safeguarding rights, and shaping a future that is safe for all. And so tonight, we aim to accomplish the following key objectives. Number one is to raise awareness about gender-based violence and digital violence. Number two is to discuss the legal framework and their challenges. Number three is to explore strategies for prevention and response. And lastly, to bring this conversation or this discussion home. And so to assist us in thoroughly dissecting and interrogating the theme in line with these key objectives, we have assembled some of our finest legal minds, beginning with our very own latest silk, Mrs. Oyinkansola Badejo Okusanya, Senior Advocate of Nigeria and Fellow of the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators, followed by our former council member and an erudite professor of law in the person of Professor Folike Dada Lawansin, our former General Secretary of the Women Forum, Mrs. Irene Pepple, and the current coordinator of the Advocacy Committee of MBA Women Forum, Chinelo Audrey of Webunam. And so as our speakers progress in sharing their thoughts and insights on these key objectives, I would encourage us or urge us that we put our questions and comments down in the chat box so that at the end of our speakers' presentations, we will take these questions and comments and the speakers can speak on them or answer your questions. Once again, thank you all for being here. And so I would proceed now to read the profiles of our speakers. And I will start with Mrs. Oyinkan Badejo Okusanya, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, popularly known as Mrs. B. Mrs. B is a partner at ALPNG and Co., that's Africa Law Practice Nigeria and Co., and she co-heads the litigation and dispute resolution practice. She's a barrister and ADR practitioner with considerable experience in domestic and international commercial arbitration. She represents a broad range of private, corporate, and state clients before the trial and appellate courts in Nigeria. Mrs. Badejo Okusanya started her career at Olaniwun Ajayi LP, after which she served as a senior aide to Lagos State Government, Babatunde Raji Fashola, Senior Advocate, Lagos State Governor, Babatunde Raji Fashola, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, on justice sector reform, and later as General Counsel to the Governor. Mrs. Badejo Okusanya is a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators, UK, and has served on the executive committee of its Nigeria branch. She is an accredited CDR mediator, a life member of African Women Lawyers Association, and a member of MBA, FIDA, IBA, International Council for Commercial Arbitration, Arbitral Women and Commonwealth Lawyers Association. She is also a member of the London Courts of International Association, London Court of International Arbitration, pardon me, and she sits on the board of the Lagos Court of Arbitration. She's an active member of the Nigerian Bar Association. Mrs. B has held several key memberships of Lagos branch and national committees, including Assistant Secretary of MBA Lagos from 2005 to 2007, and chair of the 2024 Annual General Conference Planning Committee of the MBA, for which she received the MBA Presidential Medal of Service. Excuse me. She's a two-time co-opted member of the MBA NEC from 2022 to date. Mrs. B is a much sought-after resource person and is as passionate about inclusivity, gender, and children's rights as she's about knowledge, development, and mentorship as tools of professional development. Our second speaker is Professor Folike Dada Lawansin. She's a distinguished professor of law with over 3 decades of experience in academia and legal practice. She has practiced in the area of intersection of law and emerging technologies, education, and academic achievements. Professor Dada Lawansin's academic credentials include a Doctor of Juridical Science, Health Law, and Policy, a Master of Laws from Loyola University, Chicago, USA, a Bachelor of Laws from Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, and a barrister at law from the Nigerian Law School, Lagos. She also holds a certificate in management studies from Lewisham College, London, UK, and several other certifications and training courses in information technology. Her academic pursuits are driven by a deep passion for legal excellence and the advancement of human rights and the rule of law. Professor Dada's commitment to professional development is evident in the numerous professional certifications: a chartered arbitrator, Fellow of Chartered Institute of Mediators, Fellow of Forensic Investigators Society of Nigeria, Fellow of the Chartered Institute of Management Consultants, and so on. As a dedicated member of the Nigerian Bar Association, Professor Dada currently serves as the chair of the Nigerian Bar Association Lawyers in Academia Forum and alternate chair for the Lagos Bar Journal 2021-2025. Her past service to the bar includes her role as vice chairman 2012 to 2014 and chair of MBA Ado-Ekiti from 2016 to 2018, and second vice president of the MBA from 2018 to 2020, and council member of the MBA Women's Forum from 2019 to 2022. She led the forum's advocacy committee from 2019 to 2021 and secured an all-important MOU between the New York State Bar, Women in Law section, and the MBA Women's Forum, and so on. Professor Dada possesses an extensive experience teaching international arbitration and alternative dispute resolution at both undergraduate and postgraduate levels, mentoring numerous students in this field. As the Dean of the College of Law at Caleb University, Magodo, Lagos, she secured local and international grants, actively supported the law clinic through moot and mock trial competitions in the field of clients counseling and mediation, and spearheaded initiatives such as the development of a Human Rights and Technology Center, where she served as a doctor. Professor Dada served as a notary public in the state of Texas, a licensed realtor in the state of Illinois, USA, and a respected author. She is recognized for firm expertise in arbitration, managing, discovery, due diligence searches, and mediation. Her research interests encompass a wide range of legal fields, including human rights, law and technology, family law, gender rights, and alternate dispute resolution. She supervised numerous theses and served as external examiner for doctoral dissertation. She's a strong advocate for community development, a grassroots mobilizer, and a cultural connoisseur. And our third speaker, pardon me, 1 minute, Mrs. Irene Pepple. One minute, please. Okay, Mrs. Irene Pepple is a seasoned legal practitioner. She's a member of the Chartered Institute of Arbitrator and a certified mediator, chartered secretary, gender rights advocate, and business partnership strategist with over 2 decades of professional experience spanning legal practice, public service, and civic leadership. She's the head of practice at Peacemakers Legal Consultancy, a hybrid law firm providing corporate, family, ADR, intellectual property, and regulatory advisory services to clients within and outside of Nigeria. A strong proponent of technology-driven legal solutions, she champions the idea of legal practice without limits, leveraging digital tools for access to justice and legal innovation. Called to the Nigerian Bar in 2001, she holds an LLB from the University of EU, alongside multiple professional certifications in arbitration, mediation, corporate practice, corporate governance, and dispute resolution. Inyo Bong has an extensive record of service within the Nigerian Bar Association at branch and national levels. She's a former National Assistant Financial Secretary of the NBA, a former Secretary of the NBA Section on Legal Practice, Family Law, and Human Rights Committee, and has served on several national committees, including conference planning, general purposes, and remuneration committees. At the branch level, she served as the Welfare Secretary, head of the Library and ICT Committee, amongst others. She's the immediate past secretary and a council member of the Nigerian Bar Association Women Forum, where she has been actively involved in advocacy, capacity building, and policy conversations on gender justice, professional welfare, and protection of female lawyers. She's also a former secretary of FIDA Nigeria, Rivers State, with hands-on experience in gender-based violence sensitization, survivor support initiatives, and rights advocacy for women and children. And beyond the bar, she's a member of the Board of Women in Technology in Nigeria, former Secretary of Western Nigeria, Rivers State, and the founder of the Back to Law Initiative, a mentorship and empowerment platform supporting female lawyers to returning to active legal practice. Eniogbong brings a practitioner's insights and lived professional experience to conversations on gender-based and digital violence, with particular focus on addressing these issues within the legal profession. And lastly, our last speaker is Chinelo Audrey of Webunam. She's a trailblazing advocate, renowned for her innovative approach to law, business, leadership, and climate change. With extensive training in advocacy, governance, arbitration, and environmental sustainability, she excels in her field. Among her professional highlights are as follows. She's the principal partner of CIAO Legal and partner of Webunam and Associates, a top-tier law firm in Nigeria. She's a litigator and arbitration practitioner, advising and representing clients in high-value disputes with innovative solutions. She's a neutral arbitrator with the Federal High Court Alternative Dispute Resolution in Abuja. She's a registrar of the Colloquium, a Facilitation Institute's leadership role. She's the secretary of the MBA Abuja branch's Legal Practice Committee and Colloquium Committee. She's the coordinator of Advocacy Committee, Nigerian Bar Association Women Forum. She's the secretary of the African Bar Association Women Forum, committee member, Commonwealth Lawyers Association, and the American Bar Association Climate and Environmental Committee. She's also a committee member of the International Bar Association. Among her credentials, she holds an executive environmental LLM from the Northeastern University School of Law, Boston, USA. She holds a negotiation and justice certificate from the Harvard Negotiation Institute and Harvard University, and a postgraduate diploma and LLM from the University of Abuja, Nigeria. She's a member of the Nigerian Bar Association, African Bar Association, Commonwealth Lawyers Association, American Bar Association, and International Bar Association, amongst others. She's a member of the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, a member of FIDA, a member of the MBA Women Forum, member of the African Women Lawyers Association, amongst others. She's also an alternative dispute resolution, a certified alternative dispute resolution specialist. She's also a member of the Nigerian Institute of Chartered Arbitrators, a certified mediator, and so on. She's a past president of the Rotary International Club of Abuja Gudu, amongst other professional and other associations memberships. She has received awards and recognitions from various organizations, including Paul Harris Fellow of the Rotary International, Young African Leaders Initiatives. She's also a benefactor recognized for contributions to society. And so I ask you all to join me in welcoming our speakers who are going to be speaking to the different key objectives that we have identified at the beginning of this webinar. And so to start off this conversation, I'll be calling on the learned silk, Mrs. Onyekon Solabadejo Okusanya, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, to share her thoughts with us on raising awareness about gender-based violence and digital violence. Ma, learned silk, please, you have 15 minutes to discuss this topic with us. Thank you very much and welcome on board.
Thank you very much, Esther. This learned silk is feeling very uneducated because I have only 2 degrees and no masters. But everybody else seems to have multiple degrees. So I'm very honored to be among such erudite women and such worthy colleagues who find it necessary to spend a Wednesday evening listening to this all-important topic. I'd like first to thank the MBA Women's Forum for inviting me and giving me the privilege of speaking at this webinar. I'd also like to wish everyone a happy International Human Rights Day, and just ask that if we haven't already done so, just spare a thought for our role as lawyers in helping to promote and defend human rights. This year's theme calls human rights everyday essentials. So they're not luxuries, they're not privileges, they're everyday essentials. And in a country like Nigeria, where human rights are constantly violated, it then becomes even more important that we as lawyers should rise up and protect them continually and consistently. So I wish everyone a reflective day in that regard. So the topic that I've been assigned for this is raising awareness about GBV and digital violence, the role of the female Nigerian lawyer. And it's an honor to speak about this both urgent and deeply personal issue affecting many women. Esther already gave us a couple of statistics. 1 in 3 women will or have experienced physical and or sexual violence in their lifetime. That's not something to be sniffed at. 1 in 3 women. That means that every one of us has either experienced it or knows someone who has, or knows someone who will. And therefore, it makes our role as female lawyers all the more important. But now it's gone beyond physical and sexual violence. And now with the increased technological environments that we daily live in, it has its downside. We now have what they call digital violence. And I'll talk a little bit about that a little later. So violence no longer needs a physical space to exist. Can occur in our homes, in our workplaces, and now silently on our phones, on our laptops, on our digital platforms. We witness it. We are sometimes victims of it. And certainly we are key actors, or we should be key actors in shaping the responses to it. And that will be the fulcrum of what I'm saying. So the first thing I'd like to do is talk about understanding it, understanding gender-based violence, because we talk about it all the time. It sounds like a highfalutin thing. It's not, it's real. And it remains one of our most pervasive human rights violations. That's why it is interesting and timely, and indeed apt that it's on a day like this, when the world is celebrating International Human Rights Day, that we should be talking about a thing like that. And whether it manifests as domestic abuse between husband and wife or partners, or sexual exploitation between predators in whatever form, harmful traditional practices, economic deprivation, or emotional manipulation. The common thread in gender-based violence is power and control exercised over women and girls because of their gender. And despite the legal instruments that we have, the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, the Child Rights Act, the Cybercrimes Act, gender-based violence still remains a pervasive, underreported, underprosecuted, stigmatized occurrence. And I guess on account of retaliation, economic dependency, weak enforcement mechanisms, and limited awareness, many survivors of gender-based violence or victims of gender-based violence suffer in silence. I have a personal experience that I'd like to share. There was a client I had who had been raped by a person whom she had met online and gone to spend time with in the UK. He raped her. Fortunately, she had gone to visit just before COVID started. So COVID caught her there and she couldn't leave. So for the next several weeks, up to about 2 months or so, she was trapped in his home, where he meted out all manner of emotional abuse, emotional and mental abuse, violence on her. Eventually, she was able to catch one of the flights back to Nigeria. And on account of something that she had read online that triggered off her trauma, she tweeted about what she had experienced and suffered at the hands of this person. And there began a nightmare that only just ended recently, because he then came after her, having raped her and treated her to such despicable violence and abuse. He then brought a charge against her, had caused a charge to be brought against her for having cyber bullied him. This is somebody who had suffered the indignity of being raped. She was raped by him. And then he brought a charge against her that she had cyber bullied him. And so went to trial. Eventually, she was acquitted, but not after 4 years of trauma. And each time she had to suffer the indignity of reliving the experience of having been raped by this person, and yet having to go through being charged with cyberbullying. These are things that happen to many people. And that leads me to the digital violence aspect of this gender-based violence, which is in effect a new frontier. With so many Nigerian women and girls accessing the internet, there's a disturbing rise of gender-based violence in the digital space, which includes cyber stalking and online harassment, threats, blackmail, or intimidation, or non-consensual sharing of intimate images, what they popularly call revenge porn. This is a scourge because somehow or the other, many women, I don't know whether on account of trust or believing that they're dealing with people who have their back, in quote, but many women still share their personal images, intimate images, with their boyfriends or partners or fiancés or whatever. Some are photographed without their knowledge or consent, perhaps after engaging in sexual intercourse. They are photographed while they are asleep, they are photographed while they are bathing, and these images are shared online, or these people are blackmailed on account of having these images. I remember there was a popular musician who had slept with someone and he threatened to share her images that they had exchanged. I think she sent them to him, and he was threatening her if he didn't give her a certain amount of money, he was going to share those images. So she just released them herself. And that took away the threat. But then she did have to suffer the indignity of having her images all over the internet, and the internet never forgets. We also have an increasing phenomenon of deepfakes and digitally manipulated images. Doxing. Doxing, I didn't know there was a term such as doxing until I started researching for this topic, which is unauthorized sharing of personal information, documented information, online impersonation and identity theft, hate speech, trolling, misogynistic trolling, and coordinated online attacks. You know, people carrying out their quarrels or their attacks on one another online for the whole world to see. And so these, all of them and more, constitute digital violence, which is particularly harmful because it doesn't go away. It follows women everywhere across physical boundaries, into the workspaces, even into the privacy of homes. It can lead to depression, social withdrawal, reputational damage, loss of jobs. People have lost their jobs on account of this, and in extreme cases, suicide. I had another client who entered into a relationship with someone in the workplace because of some problems that she was having with her spouse. The spouse got to find out and then hacked into her system, extracted all the emails that she and her co-worker turned lover had carelessly exchanged and circulated them onto the office system, so that every member of that company was able to read what those two who also worked in that company had been exchanging. As you can imagine, the kind of discussions that two people in such a relationship would exchange when they think nobody can see what they're saying. Eventually, she had to leave that office because the shame was just too much. In extreme cases, some people have either attempted to take their own lives or have actually taken their lives. And this is why, against this background, this webinar is not just important, it is urgent and it is timely, because it raises awareness amongst a group of people who are professionally positioned to help do something about this, to help people who are victims of this, and that's us, we female lawyers. And awareness is more important, is more than just information, it's empowerment. Because when women know what constitutes abuse, when they know what the law says, when they know what remedies exist and how to document and report violations, then they're better equipped to assert their rights and seek justice. And that's why we're here. When communities, institutions, and the justice sector are more aware of the realities and the extent of gender-based violence and digital violence, then we're all better positioned to prevent it or to respond to it when it does occur and to support survivors. And this is why our role is very crucial. As female lawyers, we're uniquely positioned to bridge those gaps, the gaps between the law, the lived experiences, and to help to bring about systemic change. Culturally, we have a lot of things that are hindering gender-based violence from being eradicated as quickly as it should. The fact that women are often in very unequal relationships with their male counterparts. The fact that we don't even get the right support even from female role models in our communities, in our societies. It is not unusual, for instance, to be told to suck it in, to be told, this is how you just have to accept it, just have to deal with it, just deal with it as best as you can. Oh, you have children, just think of the children, just bear it. Don't worry, after all, he's providing for you. After all, he's looking after the children, and so on and so forth. So we have a unique role and an important one to ensure that these age-old practices and long-held beliefs are, by proper messaging and awareness creation, are eradicated when people become more aware. And so one of the things that we can do, we can demystify the law for women in our communities. I advocated at a similar webinar that I spoke that, we all have religious organizations that we belong to and play roles in. We can, in our churches, in our mosques, in our society, in our community engagements, we can organize seminars where we talk to women who need to hear that kind of information. We gather them together. We conduct legal awareness clinics, not just under the auspices of MBA Women's Forum or FIDA or OLA or International Women's Society, but even just in our own little way, in our own communities. We can use social media to explain rights in simple terms. We can go into the markets and partnering with NGOs. We can go to schools. We can catch them young. As I said, religious institutions, local councils, market women, any group of potentially affected people or people who are actually going through these things or have gone through them and don't know what to do, have never had the benefit of knowing exactly what to do when those situations occur. We can also either provide survivor-centered legal support or help in existing survivor-centered legal support environments. Survivors need lawyers who understand trauma, respond with empathy, and respect confidentiality. And we can help clients navigate police reporting, obtain restraining orders. I tend to do a lot of matrimonial causes, and some of them usually start with us having to help the invariably we work for the female. And oftentimes we've had to obtain restraining orders because the children are involved and the husband is determined to either take the children away and so on and so forth, or it's his house in court and he wants to get in there and clear out all things and so on and so forth. So we've had to obtain restraining orders on behalf of clients. We can help them to document digital evidence properly or advise while they're still trying to find their way out of that situation. We can help them to understand how they should, gather evidence that will help them when they have to go to court, so that they have evidence to put before the courts to show that they have been victims of these things. We can help them while they're pursuing their civil and criminal remedies, and we can protect them from further digital harm. We're uniquely positioned to do that or offer advice about that. We can also help to strengthen institutional response. And this is something that I think organizations like the Women's Forum should take very seriously, because it is institutions like this that can advocate, that can write letters, that can lobby those in positions of power to ensure that these changes are not only made, but they become widespread. For example, we do have gender units at police stations, but how effective are they? Who is checking to see that they're actually meeting the need that they were established to meet? Who is checking to ensure that their responses move along with the types of complaints that come? A few years ago, the scourge of digital violence was not that rampant. Now it is. So who is ensuring that there are improved digital forensic capabilities? Who is lobbying for those to happen? Who is lobbying to ensure that there are policies in place across the entire justice system institutionally, that there are clear reporting channels for online abuse, for physical abuse, for sexual abuse? Who is advocating for better training for judges, investigators and prosecutors in these particular areas? These are the kind of things that gender-based institutions like the Women's Forum can take up. Influencing policy reform. We as female lawyers, as we continue to raise awareness, we must continue to advocate for the harmonization of gender-based violence laws across all the states in the Federation. Not all states are equal. So what constitutes a crime in one state doesn't in another. And yet, women all across Nigeria suffer these things. We can influence policy reform for stronger provisions for online abuse and image-based violence. For example, I don't think that the Cyber Crimes Act or the Violence Against Persons Act goes far enough to protect victims of these violations. We can influence policy reform in supporting systems for survivors, insist that shelters, psychological support, digital literacy training are all become mainstream. Individuals can't do that. It's organizations such as this and all female lawyers working together. And we can all people.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Please, you have 2 more minutes, please.
That's fine, and I'm going to finish.
Kindly round up. Yes,
I'm going to finish those 2 minutes. I'm watching. I have a timer here as well. I'm going to finish.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, corporate accountability, especially for social media platforms. Which Big Brother is watching Big Brother, so that people know what can and cannot be done online. So we can also help to promote and develop leveraging technology for protection and creating the awareness for people, apps for emergency reporting, hotlines and online legal assistance, digital self-defense training. When the digital violence comes on, how do you deal with it? How do you protect yourself? So these are things that I think that raising awareness will help at least to start the conversation and move the needle, and also to push the message very strongly that abuse is never the survivor's fault, and that all the things that they're going through constitutes evidence that they must keep and can use to protect themselves. So I will conclude by a call to action that we must commit to collective and proactive action, because as women in this profession, we stand at a powerful intersection where experience meets expertise, and we must raise our voices to create that awareness so that every woman, every Nigerian woman can live, work, and thrive in safety and dignity. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you so much, Learned Silk. Thank you for speaking to these issues that a lot of females actually do suffer or have suffered in the time past, and for raising awareness to the existence of these forms of violence. We really appreciate you for sharing your thoughts and insights with us on this topic. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.
And so we move on to the next speaker. Our next speaker is Professor Foluke Dada, and she'll be making her presentation on the legal frameworks available for the gender-based violence and the challenges that are faced with regards to these frameworks. Professor Dada, I hope you're online.
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you, Prof. It's a pleasure to have you on. Please,
always a pleasure.
The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Yes, so good evening, everyone. My dear colleagues, I would assume that there will be some learned senior advocates. I know of my very good friend, Mrs. Bold, SAN. I choose to call you that if you don't mind. It's always a pleasure to have you. My great regard to everyone online. This is another wonderful webinar organized by the Women's Forum. And I would say generally that what we just listened to was so powerful. It gives us a very good picture of the problems at hand and some of the ways we can go around them. However, the question is, will gender violence ever end? Are legal frameworks the solution? But I will go through the legal frameworks on gender-based violence as we have it. I must also say categorically that Nigeria has a very robust legal framework that we can compare with any nation. We know that Nigeria signs any and every treaty, all to be politically correct, but are we really enforcing? I don't think the problem is that we don't have the laws, but we do. So we'll go through the legal frameworks as they are. And my distinguished colleagues, it's a honor, a great honor to engage this gathering on the issue that sits at the intersection of human rights, social justice, and the rule of law. We know that gender-based violence has been described as the most pervasive yet least prosecuted human rights violations. Why that is, we don't really understand, but for scholars and practitioners alike, gender-based violence is not just a social phenomenon, but it is a jurisprudential concern, and it questions the resilience of our legal institutions and the credibility of enforcement. The mechanisms of enforcement as we have it, to me, is a little frail, but the moral architecture of the society itself is challenged. So we know that the law should stand in as a shield for the vulnerable. But GBV has compelled us to ask whether these legal frameworks work. We know as a fact that we have the international framework, we have the regional framework, we have the domestic framework. Now, are they all working to protect the obligations of Nigeria? Are they working to protect the people? Well, usually all these elegant provisions etched in statutory text, but they are rarely realized in the lived experiences of survivors. And the examples given by Mrs. B, of course, will tell us that there are profound questions to be answered. Number one, let's try to understand GBV as a legal harm by itself. And to properly situate the frameworks, the legal frameworks, it is essential that we reaffirm conceptual foundations. So we know it is not an episodic misconduct. It is systemic. It's a systemic violation rooted in unequal power relations. GBV by itself encompasses the physical, sexual, psychological, and economic harms that we can imagine. Now, we know that Section 34(1)(a) guarantees every individual the right to the dignity of their person and prohibits subjecting any person to torture or any inhuman or degrading treatment. We know that this is a primary constitutional provision used to challenge and litigate cases of violence and abuse, and as such acts violate human dignity. Now, we also know that the Constitution of Nigeria, under Section 42, guarantees the right to freedom from discrimination based on sex, among other grounds. The provision is used to challenge the discriminatory practices and laws that perpetuate gender inequality, which is an underlying cause of gender-based violence. We also know that the child marriage ban and of course, which forbids the betrothal of marriage of children under 18 and all that, is there, but we do have situations where children are betrothed at very early ages. Now, the Nigeria's Child Rights Act of 2003 also addresses gender-based violence by protecting children from harmful practices like female genital mutilation, child marriage, like I referred to, sexual violence, and then Section 31, criminalizing unlawful sexual intercourse with a child, which of course is child rape. There's no other name we can give to it. As it is, we also have the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act. Interestingly, Section 12 provides that a person who causes forced financial dependence or economic abuse of another commits an offense and is liable to a conviction to a term of imprisonment not exceeding 2 years or to a fine not exceeding 500,000 naira or both. But the issue here is that I have a problem with the fines and even sometimes the sentencing. You find out that sometimes people commit very grave crimes and they can easily afford to pay 500,000 and leave. Nothing can be done because that's the express provision of the law. But that is the way it is. It corrects a behavior, but is it sufficient? Is it enough? And if you look at the VAP Act, you'll find out that Section 38 by itself also protects victims of violence, and they're entitled to material, medical, psychological, and legal assistance from governmental and non-governmental agencies. And the beauty of the VAP Act is that we know that Chapter 2 of our Constitution actually is generally known to be non-enforceable, non-justiciable, and all that. But thankfully, we have such provisions as the VAP Act and the Citizens' Rights Agency. They are able to prosecute adopting several laws like the VAP Act. And of course, you know that the African Charter on the Rights, African Charter by itself is a part of our law, having gone through the processes of domestication. So we can use vital provisions under the African Charter to protect the victims of gender-based violence. Now, that's talking about our local laws. And if you look at the international framework and the regional framework, you find out that all the economic and social rights and all the rights that would have been wasted under Chapter 2, they have been brought into force through international law. And international law has actually governed or even being a source for us to implement other laws that work to protect people from gender-based violence. And notable of those are the CEDAW of 1979, that is the Convention on the Elimination of all discrimination against women. And the CEDAW by itself obligates state parties to eliminate discrimination against women in all its forms, and the subsequent general recommendations, particularly Recommendation 19 and Recommendation 35, clarify that violence against women is a form of discrimination. We have another notable instrument, the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, 1995. While not binding, it has provided a persuasive global blueprint for states to strengthen laws, institutions, and prevention strategies. And I think Nigeria in that regard is doing a lot in ensuring that the institutions are created, the laws are made. However, there's a lot to do, especially in our big communities. You would have thought that it would be something that people would do in the rural areas and all of that, but you find out that in our inner cities, it's becoming an epidemic. To me, the rate at which young people, especially women, are abused is really astronomical. So, but we do know that the Maputo Protocol of 2003 at the regional level encourages the African states to enact legislation, prohibit all forms of violence, punish perpetrators, protect survivors, and eradicate harmful practices such as child marriage and FGM. Yet, we still have child marriages happening in some regions of our country. However, collectively, these instruments establish 4 key state obligations. 1 is prevention, 2 is protection, 3 is prosecution, and 4 is reparations. And these are the 4 Ps. They are known as the 4P framework. And it's now widely referenced in gender-based violence jurisprudence. And I spoke about Nigeria's domestic framework. The problem we have mainly is that most states have not domesticated the acts, the laws, and it's a major challenge. For states who have domesticated, very few are enforcing. But we can talk proudly about Lagos State, Ekiti State. Those states, the 2 states, are taking the lead in drafting laws and ensuring enforcement. You find out that in a state like Ekiti, there's a name and shame policy. Name and shame policy under the Ekiti State gender-based law. Under that law, once you are identified, you are not protected in any way. So we've had a situation there where I think it was a medical doctor that was named and shamed, a politician named and shamed, and several others. And you will find out that in Lagos, the state takes takes gender-based violence very seriously. And in Lagos State, for example, and even in Ekiti State, we have sexual offenders record, and that's very important. It's very important because you then have a way to monitor, manage, but that can still be improved. So while we talk a lot about gender-based violence, it's important that we note also that you know, at the recent FIDA Ondo program that I attended a couple of days ago, there is talking about gender-based violence. There was a mention and focus on maternal mortality, and it's a wave now that kills women per hour. So that is something that activism needs to really focus on. Our activism must focus on that. So we have talked about the local, the domestic laws and some international laws, but it is important to mention that the persistent challenges undermining enforcement is a point to really consider. Why do we have problems enforcing some of this rule? And I have mentioned the uneven domestication and fragmented implementation. And at that state adoption that has been uneven, and it's often accompanied by inconsistent definitions, diluted provisions, and weak enforcement architectures. And states need to respond to gender-based violence. Now, we have institutional weaknesses. The institutions charged with enforcing the law often lack the resources and training necessary to respond effectively. If you go to the police station, sometimes where we can say we're blessed because we have the gender desk in some police stations, social welfare departments, and all of that. But there are also social cultural barriers and religious barriers. When people go through GBV, you know, there's a lot of stigma, fear of ostracization, economic dependence, and all of that. Now, one key issue in the legal framework is the limited access to justice. So survivors, especially in rural or low-income settings, often face prohibitive costs. I have just about 3 minutes left. Intimidating court environments. How can we make our courts more friendly? That is something we need to really work on. And insensitive questioning when victims go to court. We need to look at that as part of the legal framework, because there's no way you can enforce the law and the environment is hostile to the litigants. It will not encourage people to come out. So moving forward to have a more effective GBV framework, there are a few recommendations. One, we need to consolidate and harmonize our legislation. Nigeria must move towards complete state domestication, harmonization of definitions and penalties, strengthening of our state level regulations and guidelines, and this will close the gaps and create a national standard. We need to invest in institutional capacity and have dedicated GBV desks within the police and judiciary. State prosecutors must be continuously trained, and forensic capacity development is important when you have cases of GBV. And the law is only as strong as the institutions tasked with enforcing it. So we need this survivor-centered access to justice, which must be, where we would have specialized GBV courts, time-bound prosecution services, expanded legal aid, and elimination of discriminatory evidentiary burdens. So there must be community education and norm change interventions. Data is important. Our government agencies, universities, civil society must collaborate to build robust data system, capturing trends, risk factors, and all that. And in conclusion, I say that we need to bridge the gap between law and the lived reality of our people. And we need to make progress with GBV legal framework and have stronger status, expanding body of judicial opinion and increasing public awareness. So I close by thanking everyone, thanking the Women's Forum for all the wonderful work that you have been doing since recreation. I appreciate the council members. I appreciate the ESCO and all the members of MBA Women's Forum. We need to do a lot more as legal minds to ensure that the laws adapt to the needs of the society. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Prof. Thank you for reminding us and in some cases drawing our attention to some of these laws that are available or in existence in the fight against gender-based violence or the prevention thereof. Thank you also for pointing out some of the challenges being faced in the implementation of these laws, e.g. the non-domestication or fragmented implementation of some of these laws, and so on. We really appreciate you for sharing your thoughts on this particular topic. Thank you, Ma. Once again, I would like to remind our participants to please note your questions as our speakers are speaking. You can either drop them immediately on the chat box or drop them after, so that we can take all the questions at the end of the presentations. And so at this juncture, I think we should move on to the next speaker, Chinelo Audrey of Webunam, so that she can share her thoughts with us on strategies for prevention and response. Chinelo, you have the floor. 15 minutes, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Esther. Good evening, distinguished gentlemen of the inner bar and the outer bar. I can see Mrs. Oyinkanso is still here. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for having me here today. Okay, so I have made a presentation, like slides, and have sent it to the organizers. I don't know if they're going to share the screen or just go ahead. Anyway, I started with defining what gender-based violence and digital violence is, which the last two speakers have spoken. By the way, I don't know what I would say again after listening to our first two speakers, a professor and then another distinguished SAN. I'm wondering what contributions I would bring in here today, but then my topic is different, so I'll just go ahead. GBV and digital violence affects millions of women, like Delene said, and like Esther said in her introduction. It oftentimes causes physical and emotional and psychological harm to individuals, in fact, both the victims and the perpetrators. What are the roles of lawyers? It's critical for lawyers to promote justice. And in promoting this justice and protecting human rights and advocating for policies to combat the gender-based violence and digital violence, we need to be circumspect in everything that we do. What are the strategies of preventing these vices? I know. Awareness and education, this cannot be overemphasized. Training, capacity building for lawyers. We need to equip ourselves with knowledge and skills to handle GBV and digital violence. For example, I was very happy when this administration, the Nigerian Bar Association, came up with the ICLE points, and they simplified it that even just mere attending branch meetings, you get a point. Because I recall so many years ago, I used to see other jurisdictions have, before you attain for certain things, you must have certain ICLE points. So I kept wondering when the Nigerian Bar Association would get to that point, and only for us to now see it happening live this year in this administration. So we thank the Nigerian Bar Association for that. So that is very good because in fact, yesterday I received an email of some program that MBA is doing. So they not only have those programs, they create the awareness for it as well. Community engagement and sensitization, we need to raise awareness for these vices. Digital violence has been there for a very long time. I remember in 2006, year one in the university, I received a birthday gift, iPhone 6 that time, and I was in a Samsung. So I went to Banex to move my contacts from the Samsung to the iPhone. And the guy that did it said, I should leave the phone, I should go and come back. So by the time I came back, he started threatening me that, Madam, you get plenty things for your phone. And I was looking at him, small me, you're calling me madam, and then you're telling me I have plenty things. Okay, what are the things that I have? He said, I see your nude. So I laughed at him because I'm one that has never done that. In fact, I see it as really appalling. I'll just sit down and be sending my nudes to who? Why? So when he said he was going to post, I called his bluff. I just collected my phone and I left, and up to today, nothing. So if I didn't know that I didn't have these things on my phone, I guess I would have been jittering and he would have been able to maybe swindle me, collect money, or do all sorts. So that's one. That's aside. We also have a case from Bayes University. In fact, I got a referral from someone at now because we had handled a case at Bayes University. Imagine secondary school and university students. This one was boyfriend and girlfriend now. The boyfriend had showed his friends his girlfriend's nudes, pictures and videos that they had done in private. They consented to in private. And so the boyfriend showed his friends. And then one of his friends found a way to the friend's phone, collected one of the nudes and started threatening the girl. She didn't even know who was threatening her at that time. She just knew she kept receiving calls of her nudes, but she knew where it was. She even ended up breaking up with her boyfriend because she didn't trust the boyfriend anymore. And the boyfriend still did not know what was going on because he didn't know how those pictures leaked out. I know. To cut the long story short, they had reported the issue to the authorities, to the school's authorities, at the institution, and the institution started victimizing the child. It will interest you to know that they even set up a panel to resolve the issue, to see whether she actually posted her nudes on the school platform, because that was the story they painted. I know. They collected school fees from her that semester, but refused her to register for classes. So when it was brought to our attention, we just narrated everything and how she had consented to her boyfriend, which we said it was her personal right. At the end of the day, the school made her come back, but this was after losing a semester. However, if she had not spoken out to her uncle, now this is a man who she felt confident in. She couldn't feel confident in her parents, especially her mom, but she spoke to her uncle, that's her mom's brother, who now got a wind of it, of how they had handled this case in Bayes, and then called us. What am I saying in essence? If we have different channels of reporting these things or resolving these issues, women would have a safe space to discuss these issues with either loved ones or with anybody they feel confident with. Another preventive strategy is community engagement and sensitization. We need to raise awareness about this GBV and digital violence and promote the culture of respect and consent. For example, the Me Too movement that has raised massive awareness about this GBV and encouraged survivors to speak out. We also have policy and legislative advocacy. We need to strengthen the laws and policies. We need to collaborate with stakeholders, people of like minds, government agencies, non-governmental agencies, and other stakeholders to develop and advocate for policies and laws that protect women from GBV and digital violence. Just yesterday, we had the program at the African Bar Women Forum in collaboration with the United Nations, with different ladies from the United Nations Women. And it was a success because the communique has been posted out, and I hear that the president has received calls from stakeholders on how they can collaborate and push this out. So we need to do more of collaboration. We need support services, access to justice and counseling, safe spaces and hotlines where victims, I know a lot of people that have had this, but they just keep it to themselves, and it somehow affects the individuals. Whether we like it or not, it has its own backfall. We need to be proactive in these things. Now, what are the reporting mechanisms? We need to encourage victims to report this. You might speak to one person, like they say, if you see something, say something. You can speak to one person, and that one person can help skyrocket this information out there. You don't even need to know how the information has got there, as long as you get a resolve after it. Effective investigation and prosecution. We need to ensure effective investigation of these vices, especially the digital violence cases, it is prominent now. Like Leonard Six said, 2 in 10 persons have experienced it. And it's so appalling that you see a lot of cases with the younger ones, like the really younger ladies, or even, it's not just with the ladies or the female, it happens to the boys as well. The case I talked of in Bayes University was with a boy, a final year student and a 1 year student of law. The 1 year student of law was a boy. And it goes on and on. So there needs to be support for the survivors, and not just the survivors alone, even the perpetrators, because if they knew better, they wouldn't continue doing it, because sometimes you see these perpetrators have committed this crime over and over and over again. So there needs to be medical and psychological support for them, economic empowerment and rehabilitation. This cannot be emphasized. NACTIP does a whole lot about this. FIDA does it. The African Bar Association Women Forum does it. Even the NBA Women Forum does it. So we need more collaboration with those non-governmental organizations out there that specialize in this, not just in Nigeria, internationally as well. Collaboration and partnership. Again, like I said, with international organizations, we don't necessarily need to have the funding. They have the funding. If you collaborate with them, everyone gets a pie from the cake. So if we can do this more often, I'm sure we'd have a lot of cases resolved. So what are the roles of lawyers, advocacy and representation? We cannot, this is our job basically. We are called to speak out for the less privileged, for everyone out there. Aisha Yesufu has been advocating for policies and laws that protect women from GBV and digital violence. And I said, FIDA has been there for a very long time. You can't take it away from them. The NBA Women Forum has been doing that as well. And other stakeholders. We need to just identify these organizations that do it and continue collaborating with them. Policy development and reforms. We keep year out, we keep talking about this. There needs to be adequate contribution to policy development and reforms. Efforts to combat this GBV and digital violence. Female lawyers have contributed to these, and they keep doing it. The male too, there are lots of he for she's here too that do that on this platform and in general. In fact, I don't need to call names because we know most of them. Community leadership and engagement. We need to provide leadership and engage with these communities to promote a culture of respect and consent. It will interest you to know that there's a case, this was in 2015 or 2016. We went into a community to advocate for gender-based violence against women. And then sometime I received a call, like after that visit, from one of the men in the leaders in that community, saying that Nami they can't spoil their wives. That woman wey marry put for house, no they answer am again. And I was shocked. I was like, Oga, wetin happen? He say, my madam they get belle. She talks, say she go hospital. And I'm like, is she not meant to go to the hospital to deliver? And the man is like, no, say they get two other children, I ain't deliver the children. And I'm like, Habasa. But okay, that you had done then, maybe you didn't know any better. But at least now we have come into the community, we are providing the resources, the midwife. Okay, if you say she will give birth in the house with you there, then accept the midwife. This man refused. We thought we were having a headway, trying to educate him on it, even got his friends to speak to him as well, because those other ones accepted the help from us. I know. But on the day of the delivery, we did not even know the woman had even gone to labor. He did it himself in the house. Guess what? He lost the wife and lost the child. If he had as much as even just allowed a doula in the house while they were delivering, after all, these days there's even the water bet and all, I'm sure she would have lived to today and the child too would have lived. But the man just kept hammering. And before that, the story we heard was that he beat her as in blue-black before, and that was what pushed her into labor. So we cannot keep overemphasizing the need for this advocacy, especially in communities. What are the challenges and the opportunities for digital violence and the GBV? Combating.
Chinelo, I'm sorry to interrupt you. 2 more minutes, please. Thank you.
So there's the issue of bias and stereotypes. There's the issue of stigma, societal norms, deep-rooted patriotic norms and stereotypes that perpetuate GBV and digital violence, making it difficult to address these issues like the story I just gave. Victim blaming the victim of violence that they experience a common stereotype that discourages reporting, like the case in both Bays and now. Lack of understanding from all parties involved. It's interesting to know that some parents even victimize their children and as in try to push them to hush, as in to keep quiet, to be silent about it when they experience things like that. Stigma, shame, guilt, fear of retaliation, societal exclusion, a whole lot. Limited resources too is a factor as well. Lack of infrastructure, shortage of skilled personnel, people that are schooled or that are educated, are experienced in these, like counselors or law enforcement officers. No, we need more people who are experts in this. And then lack of awareness, that's limited knowledge, the misconception of what the GBV is, and online violence, and then lack of education. How do we address these issues? We need to raise awareness, like I've been saying. We need to challenge the biases and the stereotypes. We need to provide support services, strengthen our laws and policies, and foster partnership. And the opportunities, technology has a lot of opportunities. Awareness and education, reporting mechanisms, support services, data collection and analysis. If there are more cases out there, a lot of people will be deterred from doing these vices. Collaboration, multi-stakeholder partnerships, collaboration with men and boys, again, the he's for she's, cross-sectoral partnerships, and then global partnerships. We need to do more of advocacy, policy advocacy, awareness raising, community engagement, and then amplifying these survivors of GBV and digital violence to promote their rights and their needs. So how do we leverage on these opportunities? We need to develop innovative solutions, build capacity, promote inclusivity, foster a culture of prevention. I'm sure by the time we do all this, digital violence and the GBV would somehow be a thing of the past or close to a thing of the past. Now, female lawyers can play these critical roles in combating GBV and digital violence by advocating for these policies, promoting services, support services in particular, and promoting awareness. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you so very much, Chinelo. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us on the strategies that can be adopted in the prevention of GBV and digital violence, one of which is collaborations, which of course cannot be overemphasized, and for also speaking to some of the ways that these cases can be responded to once reported. Now we move on to the next speaker. Once again, I'd like to remind our participants, please put down your questions. And if you don't have any questions, I mean, we'll take it that everybody understood and agrees with everything that has been said by our speakers. And so we'll move on to our last and final speaker in the person of Mrs. Irene Eniobong-Pepo, to assist us in, bringing this conversation home, just really bringing it home and sharing her thoughts on how it actually applies to everyone. Mrs. Pepo, you have the floor. 15 minutes, please. Thank you so much.
Good evening, everyone. And such a pleasant evening to be speaking with our colleagues. Thank you for having me. Let me say I stand on the existing protocol because I know there's so many people to greet and talk to and just appreciate. But I think I'll just ride on the wave that Chinelo has spoken about. And then starting from our Leonard Silk, telling us about GBV, and a professor telling us about the framework, regional framework, national, and then Chinelo bringing it down to the level of explaining the different ways GBV occurs, down to the strategies that we can use to combat GBV. My role this evening is to ask us a question. While we female lawyers are on the march to fight against GBV and all that, what happens to us? What about us, we the female lawyers? We are the ones who allegedly are fighting for the cause of other females under GBV. But what about us? Who is fighting for us? Now, this brings me to a very sad story about Temitope Odu. I know that if you can remember this year, she was reportedly called to the bar, I think in September 2025, at the age of 56. Now, this is a woman who had fulfilled probably a long-standing ambition to become a lawyer and was called to the bar. Probably she has put in so many years just to become a lawyer. Probably she has also thought of, okay, maybe I will come and fight the cause of women. I will do this, I will do that. She had so many dreams. Now, the research on her has it that before her call to bar, she is said to have worked as a civil servant in the Ministry of Agriculture and supported her family financially. Most female lawyers are working, taking care of their families, taking care of their children, their siblings, their parents, that doing all that. She was also described as, by acquaintances and church members, as resilient and determined. How many female lawyers do you know that are very resilient? We're very resilient, we're determined. And she also proved that at 56, age is no barrier to education and achievement. But guess what? In spite of all her achievements, in spite of all she has done, 56 is not 20. 56 is not 30. 56 holds a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge. But guess what? She was alleged to have been beaten to death, in fact, domestic violence, by her own husband. So while we are talking about GBV with women, rural women, women who don't know what the law says, women who don't know what the frameworks are, women who don't know how to go to FIDA, women who don't know how to go to AULA, we have women amongst us who are suffering GBV every day. Now, someone would tell me, well, okay, so how come we don't have so many cases? Most of these cases go unreported. I tell you why. Because most of the women are feeling bad. Some of them are ashamed. So, and they feel that, how can I, a lawyer, tell people that I'm suffering from GBV? I'm going through this. So now, it was alleged that her husband beat her, but that was not the first time. After her death, it was said that, this had spanned more than 2 decades, 20 years of suffering. I can tell you for free, I have met female lawyers. In fact, some of them would call me and tell me, "Ma, see what I'm going through." And some of them, they are going through economic abuse, serious economic abuse from their partners. But because we are seen as the savior of all, we have to either pretend that it doesn't exist or just, subdue our pain to work on other people's pain. And now, guess what happened to Temitope? But after her death, her husband, who was arrested, was reportedly released on bail. Now, this development is what sparked anger and concern, the legal community, the public, and all that. So, and it triggered an outcry from lawyers. So I want us to think, while we are talking about GBV and the other world, the world ahead of us, in front of us, the women that we serve, what about GBV in the homes of female lawyers, the practitioners who are fighting every day? Do you know that, in fact, okay, I think there was a memorial walk held in Lagos. I think legal practitioners, activists started calling for justice for Temitope. No, it is during that march that, the speakers were talking about weak institutional responses to domestic abuse. Some were saying it's because of her religion, and some said no religion to justify violence. This let us know that while we are fighting for others, many women, especially those in the legal profession, are looking for who will fight for them. So what can we do? We in the Women Forum, this is us now. How do we help? How can we ensure early intervention? How can we support people? Because most people suffering GBV feel that maybe there's no way out, or they're just ashamed, basically, Imagine female lawyers who are already empowered, educated, legally aware, are still vulnerable. Women who have made it to the bar, women who have financial independence and professional success still fall victim to domestic violence challenges. So GBV affects people in every strata. And again, I think like from some of the sources, there's one time in MBA Women's from River State, we had a talk like this, and then people started talking about their lives, and what they have been going through. Some people are going through horrible GBV in their homes. Yet this long-term abuse, it remains hidden because number one, the stigma, fear, social pressure, it just reinforces the culture of silence. How can we break this? How are we going to help that female lawyer who is wondering who can come to her aid, who is afraid to speak out because of tale-bearing, because of, a lot of things that go on with, when you're a strong woman, you're seen, you can't be weak. Many people don't know. Many people even fear, that the allegation, the outrage, what will happen? People would, it will affect their reputation and all that. How do we help ourselves in the Women's Forum? How do we help female lawyers? This, for me, I think Temitope's own was, I know we already had one about the female lawyer some years ago who was also allegedly beaten to death by her husband, killed. So it's a wake-up call. While we're advocating for other women, what about us? Should we not start in sensitizations amongst us? What should we do? What should we do? What should we do to help the women amongst us who are going through GBV? I would hinge my closing remarks on what Chinelo said. Largely, all she said are the ways that we can help to, push down GBV, help people to speak up. There must be a supportive system within the Women Forum to help women break the culture of violence, silence, the culture that's among legal practitioners. There must be a space where we feel, I know there's a time we had toll-free lines in the Women's Forum for women to report. So there must be reporting mechanisms. We need internal solidarity. Lawyers, female lawyers must stand with female lawyers. There must also be confidential support structures where it's confidential. Nobody knows to know the business of what I'm going through so that I can be helped. When people are afraid of their business being outside, they shut up. They don't really want to say it. So we need, number one, internal solidarity. We need confidential support structures. How can we build such structures within the Women Forum? What kind of reporting mechanisms do we have? And then, of course, peer protection within the legal profession. We know that we are the doctors, but doctors also need help. We know that we are the advocates, but advocates also need people who would advocate for them. I want to leave us with this thought this evening, that while we canvass and we advocate for others in the larger society, please let us look inwards and see the women within us who need our help. This is very, very important part of GBV fights and protection and prevention. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Teppel, for sticking to time. In fact, you've finished with your presentation in less than the time you are allocated. Okay, so I would like to say thank you once again for agitating our minds with these questions that you have posed in the course of your presentation. I'm sure every one of us will continue to, think about it and see how these things can be prevented even amongst us female lawyers. Okay, I don't know if we have questions. I'm just going through the chat box and okay, I see a question posed by one of our participants asking if someone whose video or pictures have been released without their express consent, whether they have any right of action. I think I would like to call on Professor Dada to please speak on this. I mean, what course of action do you think someone whose private video or private picture has been released without their express consent, what course of action do you think they can pursue? Thank you, ma'am. Hello, Professor Dada, are you still there, please? Can everyone hear me, or am I not online? Hello,
We can hear you.
Professor Dada. Oh, okay. Prof, I don't know. Professor Dada, are you there?
Oh, yes, I'm here
Okay.
now. Yes.
Oh,
Sorry, I
okay.
forgot
So
I had turned down the volume of the laptop. So sorry.
Okay. I hope you heard my
Yes.
question. Okay, ma'am. Please, you have the floor. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. If your picture has been shared, you do have a right of action. But I think for all that it is worth, first of all, you need to ensure that you contact the person and ensure that first of all, you need to take a screenshot of everything. You need to get all the image, the URL before they delete or before anything funny happens. And you need to importantly contact the person that posted the picture. That is very crucial. You ask categorically that they take it down. And in asking them to take it down, I advise that you put it up as a request formally, write it down. And you need to ensure that once you have the URL, you contact that platform to ensure you report everything that has happened. Most of the platforms have legal teams and they would readily pull it down. However, once you make that report and they also do their investigations and they find out that it has happened, they will ensure that that person is blocked. What you can also do is to ensure that you have all the information that you need for that action. So when you have non-consensual images online, you can contact the different agencies to support you. And one of such agencies that you can consult, you can actually make a formal report. If they refuse to pull it down, you can report to the police and document it, like I said. Once that is done, the police will you request for a criminal action to be taken. And that can be done through the prosecutors. Now, you also have the right to contact some NGOs that can help you. There are several of them. You can go to approach citizens' rights, or if there's any legal aid around you, you can do that. But you can also, as a follow-up, take precautions. What you can do is to probably ensure that the access, not probably, you make sure that continuous or continued access to that particular person is blocked. And for you to do that, most platforms will have this multi-factor authentication or two-factor authentication. Do that. And as soon as the law enforcement agency is consulted or contacted, in this case, you may need to take legal action. So you need to seek legal counsel. You can go to citizens' rights. Like I said, you can go to the Ministry of Justice, Women's section and all of that. Or you can, if you are rich, you can contact your own personal solicitor who can send formal letters. We need to pursue a legal action. As members of the forum, what we need to do is to ensure that we advise our clients properly so that all these steps that I've laid down are taken care of, so that when you finally decide to prosecute, when you finally decide to file the process in court, you have enough evidence to support your client. If you happen to be the person involved, these are the same steps that you need to take. But professionally, we need to ensure that when we engage with our clients, we need to make sure that if it's Google or whatever platform, we need to be writing them. So we're going to have to look at it holistically, such that our clients' right or our rights are protected. Usually, when you write or you complain, you file a formal report, you will find that the abuser would kind of chill in a little way. But I have had situations where when it concerns students, one of my students was actually threatened to transfer some money to some account, or she should show her nude as a form of payment for that action. As soon as we wrote the letters formally complaining and we reported to the police, that action suspended their activities because it turns out that they were a group of criminals doing such to extort money from students across the universities in Nigeria. But the interesting thing is that the university will find it as an offense if you show your nude pictures. The first thing they did was to suspend that student, for example. And of course, we had to take legal action by filing the processes in court, threatening. First of all, we wrote to the university, asking the university to set up a panel and all of that, or we would go to court. So please, importantly, you need to ensure that you have all your information gathered before you approach the courts. But of course, don't shy away from filing court actions against such perpetrators. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Our next question says, does acquiescence to gender-based violence act as a defense to it? I guess the person is looking at the point of view of a perpetrator, meaning does someone that has been violated, if they keep quiet, can the perpetrator excuse themselves or excuse their actions away by the fact that the person kept quiet? So I think I would prefer that Chinelu, please share your thoughts on this particular question. What do you think when this gender-based violence has taken place and the victim is quiet? Does that give the perpetrator some form of defense? Please take it away. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Please permit me, let me also just state what we did at the base scenario, because I saw the question on the platform. So the course of action we used was misuse of private information, breach of confidence, harassment, defamation, and then data protection. Okay, so going to your question now, does acquiescence serve as if the person is quiet? No, it doesn't, because like they say that you raped, like if the person says, I don't want sex again, and then you continue, does it mean that the person did not still rape you? No, the person raped you. So it does not serve as an excuse whatsoever. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that perfect response. And now I think I have a couple of questions myself, because I see that there are no more questions on the platform. So I'll just ask 2 questions as we are really pressed for time. Our time is fast spent. This one I will be addressing to Learned Silk, and it's about the role that mentorship play in empowering young female lawyers to take active roles in fighting against gender-based and digital violence. What role, Learned Silk, do you think mentorship play in this fight against these forms of violence? Mrs. B. I don't know if Mrs. B is still with us.
I wasn't,
Okay,
because
yeah.
my other device was frozen, but I'm here now. I'm so sorry. I had to log on another device.
Would you like me to repeat
Yes,
the
please.
question?
Yes, please. I didn't hear anything.
Oh, okay, okay. So my question is, what role do you think mentorship play in empowering young female lawyers to take active roles in fighting against these forms of violence that we are talking about? What role do you think mentorship plays
A very significant one.
in empowering them? Yes, ma'am.
A very significant one, because many people are willing but don't know what to do. And that is where mentorship comes in. This, I would say, is a structured form of mentorship. Like, for instance, Esther, you are actively involved in the duty solicitor scheme, which I see a lot of young girls actively participating in. Now, that's an established scheme that actually trains lawyers, male, female, young, old, on how to address the issues that the duty solicitor scheme covers. That's a form of mentorship. Mentorship in that specific area is that kind of thing that I have in mind when I think of mentorship in this area. We recognize that there's a job to do. We recognize that gender-based violence is a scourge that is with us. I mean, look at the example that Chinelo gave of the gentleman who said that they came into the community to spoil their wives. So there's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of awareness that needs to be created, a lot of education, both for victims and people who commit these acts that even they don't see as acts of violence against women and girls, like female genital mutilation, for example. Those things are done by women for the most part. They don't see it as violence against women and girls. So there's a lot of work to be done. And so structured programs where young female lawyers are trained in the work that needs to be done, that is essential for ensuring that we raise awareness and therefore we're able to deal with them. So yes, I think mentorship plays a significant role, structured mentorship.
Thank you very much, Lene Silk. We appreciate your thoughts on that. And let me just ask the last question so that we can round up and leave, because it's almost 9 o'clock. And this question goes to Mrs. Pepple. Beyond being a member of the NBA Women Forum, I believe you're a member of FIDA, and we also have some of us that are members of OLA. I would like you to share maybe one or two specific examples of successful initiatives that have been led by female lawyers that have made significant impact in addressing gender-based violence. Specific examples, one or two, just give us examples of successful initiatives that female lawyers have taken in combating this scourge. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Esther. Are you talking about combating the scourge within female lawyers or with our clients?
With our clients.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, this is, should I say, an everyday thing, because we find that most of our clients do not have the requisite knowledge to even understand what invasion of privacy is, GBV. Some of them know that this is, it's an offense, but like I said, they do not have the requisite knowledge. They do not know where to make that report, so they reach out to lawyers. Now, sometimes when we find that, okay, like one example, should I use my cases or should I use the ones that female lawyers that I know of? Now, we've had several issues where someone reaches out to you to say, I had this issue, this is what is happening to me. The first thing we always do, like I said, is to call you for a meeting to even take down your report or even understand what you're saying. So the first thing I think that we have done as myself is that I've had several clients who have gone through GBV. I've listened to them. Most times, people who go through GBV have been exposed to it for a long time. They have issues with even agreeing that you should take up a cause of action. Most of the time, they feel that, sometimes most of the women, I've had cases of GBV with men, and most of them had to do in marital relationships. Now, I had this client, let's talk about the man. I had this client, wife, she was actually battering him. different instances of, physical violence, using high-heeled shoes, hitting his head, drawing blood, generally just, all kinds of violence. It was funny because I was used to seeing the opposite. But this was a live scenario where a female was actually inflicting harm on a male. So like I said, the first thing I told the male was, you can't be in that environment. And the same thing I would say to any female in that scenario. It's better you leave to live than you stay in a place where your life is in danger. Now, depending on the level of the violence, depending on the intensity, you may need to leave. So this kind of scenario occurs over and over. I can't count, but the first thing you have to know is that most of these females or males feel that I don't want this to happen, but I'm not ready to leave, or I'm not ready to take action. So it takes a lot of counseling and letting them know the strategy which we are adopting and that see where we are going. So you have to let them know that, look, when you leave and you do this, it will give you space to think. It will help us to, arrange help for you, because most of them go through a lot of psychological problems. Most of the women go through a lot of psychological problems. So what we have found is that there are many instances. So after that phase, where she's separated or he's separated, we find a way to now take action, look at the causes of action. Most times it happens in marital relationships. So maybe there has to be a separation. And in fact, we have had a grounds for divorce and it was cruelty. And the court saw reason with us and gave us judgment. So there are so many cases that are rife before us, but what are we going to do as female lawyers? These are our clients. Sometimes it could be your neighbor. I had this lady who was living close to me, a compound away near where I was living, and every time she would come with a black eye, I'm like, what's going on in your life? And she would say, the guy I gave birth to with, I came back from something yesterday, so he beat me and hit my head on the wall. I had to call her into my house. So we, as female lawyers, we need to understand our place as counselors. You don't need to be judgmental. But the truth is, you want to judge, especially if you're strong and you're able to do things for yourself. Most of these people are passing through a lot of psychological issues. And the perpetrators, know it. So that they use emotional abuse, physical abuse, economic abuse on them. So what I would say to us is, many of them will come your way. What do you do first? Get them into where you can sit down with them, talk with them, understand what they are suffering. People do not judge them. Most of them are unstable. You need to find out their family members. Do they have anywhere they can stay? Some of them need to be taken to safe homes where they can, understand what they've been through. And some of them don't even know what they're going through. They feel that they are okay and that it's their fault that they are going through GBV. So there's some instances that are rife, Esther. I don't think we can really, really exhaust it. And I know many female lawyers on this call have had these issues to deal with. So I will just say, we need to create more awareness. There are women around you that need help. GBV is everywhere. They need help. And only we who have the knowledge, we know the legal framework, we know the reporting lines, we know how to, the causes of action. I was listening to Prof. Causes of action are rife. The Cyber Crimes Act is there for you to use. The Constitution, is there. It empowers, the right to privacy. There's so much we can do as lawyers if we just take it more seriously. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Peppel, for that brilliant response. We have a few comments on the platform, and some of them are to the effect that awareness is very crucial. Jingles can be done periodically, and one of our participants also say that we need to emphasize more collaboration between associations. And one also talked about, creating better synergy or still collaboration between the female associations that we have, like the FIDA, ODA, and of course the NBA Women Forum. Someone is speaking. Can the host please mute the person that is speaking? Okay, so we have a lot of other comments. Hello, who is speaking, please?
Good evening. That's the chairperson, Esther.
Oh, my chair. Oh, okay.
Good evening.
Yeah, so let me just round it so that we can now take you. I would like to say thank you very much to our speakers. It's been very, very enlightening listening to all of you share your thoughts and your insights on the theme of tonight's webinar. I'm sure all of us listeners have learned one or two things, and of course our minds have been agitated, and I believe going forward, we are all encouraged and will be empowered, to do more in this fight that is very, very important. And so on that note, I would like to say thank you once again, and I yield the floor to our chairperson who is now with us. Thank you, ma'am. You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much, and good evening, everyone. And I would like to thank each and every one person, each and every one of us that are able to attend the webinar. And thank you so much, our speakers. Thank you so much, Mrs. Badejo SAN. Thank you so much, Professor Fonuke Dada. Thank you, our able moderator. Thank you, Audrey, and anyone that
Mrs. Pepple.
Mrs. Pepple, yes, Mrs. Pepple, thank you so much, and anyone that made this possible. And my network was very, very bad. I couldn't join. I was earlier in the. I was on the meeting around 8, and just like 8:01, 8:01, my network kicked me out and I couldn't join in again. So thank you so much. And I wish us the best. And I hope the theme is timely. And I hope I know there's a lot of takeaways. The only thing that I would say is my only consolation is that I would go back and watch the recording of the session. So thank you so much. Who is okay? Esther is gone. Then who am I yielding the floor to? Is our MC here? I know I'm not the one that's going to close the meeting. Ugochi.
I believe that should be Ugochi, the secretary.
Yes. So Esther, I believe Ugochi is here.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so Madam Chair, thank you for taking the vote of thanks on my behalf. I think I'll now yield the floor to
sorry, Ugochi.
No problem, it's fine, ma'am. Alternate chair, please. Would like you to round up the session.
Thank you so much to everyone. I will say thank you again to the Lanet Silk, Mrs. Oyikan Badijo Kusoya, Mrs. Pepple, and Professor Folúkẹ́dádá Láwánsìn. I thank everybody on behalf of my chairperson as well. It's really good to see that both of us finally made it back onto the webinar. And I'm hoping that the way I have taken and I have learned so much from the speakers, a lot of us as well have learned so much as well. And we know how to deal with members like this, deal with people who have issues with the topic of the day. And then we look forward to a lot of other sessions like this. So thank you to Madam Chair and the ESCO for putting this up. And we will see you soon, hopefully next year. So let me use this medium to be the first person to wish all of us a very Merry Christmas in advance and a wonderful and prosperous and blessed 2026. God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, and have a happy Christmas and a prosperous New Year in advance. Thank you. Bye.